This story from Luke is going to tell you of the wonderful things that happened after the sad day when Jesus was crucified and laid in the tomb with a large rock rolled across it. If you remember our last story, everyone who had been with Jesus when he died had to leave because it was the Sabbath, but now they could return. It was Sunday, the first day of a new week, when as the sun was coming up, the women who had come with Jesus from Galilee rushed to the tomb with the spices and ointments they had prepared. It was the custom at that time for a proper burial, but there had been no time on Friday. When they got to the tomb, they found the stone was rolled away from the door, and the tomb was empty. While they were wondering about what might have happened, two men in shining clothes were standing by them, and the women were so frightened they bowed their faces to the ground. The men asked them, "Why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here. Remember, he told you back in Galilee that the Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men and be crucified, and on the third day rise?" Then the women remembered Jesus said that. They ran and told the apostles, but they did not believe them. Yet Peter quickly ran to the tomb and looked in, where he saw the linen cloths that had wrapped the body of Jesus lying by themselves. He too went back, marveling at what he had seen. That same day, two of Jesus' friends were going to a village called Emmaus that was about 7 miles away from Jerusalem. They were talking about everything that had happened. As they walked, Jesus started walking near them, but they were kept from recognizing him. Jesus asked them what they were talking about. Cleopas, who was looking very sad, answered Jesus by asking if he was the only visitor to Jerusalem who did not know what had happened in the past few days. Jesus asked him what had happened. So they told him the story that Jesus of Nazareth, a prophet who was mighty in deed and word before God and the people, was delivered up by the chief priests and rulers to be condemned to death and crucified. They said they had hoped he would be the one to redeem Israel. Now, 3 days after his death, the women went to the tomb and did not find his body, but instead found angels who said Jesus was alive. Some of the others also went to the tomb, and just as the women said, found it empty, but did not find Jesus alive. Jesus said to them that they were foolishly weak in faith because they did not believe what the prophets had told them. He asked them if it was not necessary that the Christ should suffer and enter into his glory. So then, beginning with Moses, he told them all the prophecies in the scripture concerning himself. You see, they believed that a Messiah would come, but not that he was going to suffer, die, and rise again. The two men reached the village they were going to, and Jesus acted as if he was going on further. But they urged him to stay, saying it was very late. So he did stay, and sat at the table with them. At the table, he took the bread and blessed it, and broke it and gave it to them. Suddenly their eyes were opened, and they recognized Jesus. Then he vanished. They talked to each other about how they had been filled with wonder when Jesus taught them Scripture as they walked on the road with him. Right away, they hurried back to Jerusalem to tell the disciples what had happened on the road, and that Jesus was alive.
As they were telling the story, Jesus appeared to all of them and said, "Peace to you." The disciples were startled, frightened, and thought they were seeing a spirit.
Jesus asked them why they were scared and doubting that it was him. He told them to look at his hands and feet, where they could see the wounds. Jesus told them to touch him because a spirit doesn't have flesh and bones.
Then Jesus asked if they had anything to eat. And so while they all thought the presence of Jesus was too good to be true, they gave him a piece of fish, which he ate as further proof that he was alive. There's one more story to tell about Jesus ascending into heaven, but that's for next month. I hope you have enjoyed this story from Luke about how Jesus rose from the dead and visited his disciples just as was promised.